We're excited to have a very special guest with us now, Kenny the Jet Smith. He has a brand new book coming out today, Talk of Champions, Stories of the People Who Made Me. Kenny, I know you have late nights. Thanks for getting up with us this morning. What do you think is the biggest reason the Lakers won last night?
Whoa, I think the biggest reason is, if you look at the versatility, because obviously LeBron and AD at times are going to be special, but is it going to be Austin Reeves or last night was Lonnie Walker? When you find in the playoffs, when you have an opportunity to have someone spark you that really isn't on the main scouting report, those are the championship teams, and those are the days that you become a champion.
Kenny, Skip here. Help me out on this. As I watched the defending champ Golden State Warriors in games 3 and then 4 here in L.A., I didn't see defending championship basketball. I saw them in the second quarter of game 3 just unravel over the last 8 minutes. They missed 12 straight shots. They had 6 turnovers. They got 3 technical fouls, and they went from up 11 to down 11. Then down the stretch last night in the last 2.5 minutes, Clay missed 2 way deep threes. Then Steph missed the 18-footer. They get the offensive rebound. He misses the 3. Then Draymond, as you know, gets caught up in the air with no place to go under the basket, has a bad pass turnover. And then I don't know what possessed Steph at the end. He comes down with the jump ball, throws it back over his head when they had a timeout left in their back pocket and just throws it out of bounds, and that's the ball game. That's not championship basketball. What do you see that's different in this year's Golden State from last year?
Well, I think they're smaller, so which enables teams to be in the game a little bit more. So you're going to have more moments. I think at times when you're going for a championship, you're not having a lot of close games. You're going to have close games you have to win. But as you just stated, game 3 and 4, they're even through the early parts of the playoffs and during the regular season, they have a plethora of close games. So then you're going to have some 50-50 games where you don't play well or you don't make the correct decision. It's kind of like driving a car. Every now and then you're going to get a fender bender. Yeah, if you drive every day, you're going to get a fender bender. You're going to have to take your car to the shop at some point. And I think that's what's going on now, where they don't have those huge blowouts on the regularity, because I don't think they have the size to overmatch you anymore that they used to be able to do at times. When they had, even when Looney is playing well, they have that advantage at times.
When you look at the Warriors and through 5 games, they've used 3 different starting lineups. They start out with Kevon Looney in the starting lineup. They didn't really like that. They go to JaMychal Green. They didn't really like that. And so now they went to Gary Payton II. Do you think we'll see a 4th starting lineup, or do you think they ride that because they did have some success putting Anthony Davis in the high pick and roll, bringing him away from the basket, so now they don't have rim protection, and through the first 3 quarters, it was almost like a layup line, Kenny?
Yeah, I think they had a lot of success with that recipe. Now they just have to finish a game.
Okay.
That lineup, Gary Payton II, for some reason, is like, I talked to Draymond early in the season. I was on his podcast or whatever, and I said, y'all miss Gary Payton II. He's like, really? You think so? I'm like, yeah, because what he does is all of the things that
nobody else can do.
does, but he doesn't. But he's a little livelier body.
Yes.
Like, he's just livelier than Draymond. So now he gets those extra rebounds. He gets those extra possessions. He's probably, 6'3", but he plays like he's 6'7". And he defends at a high rate.
Yep.
He could defend 1 to 4. That's what Draymond does. But what he does, he finishes more layups than Draymond. Draymond at times will, not even look at the basket. Where Gary Payton II, he looks at the rim when he's driving to score. So that separates him. And I think they did have a recipe that they're gonna use. And I think he's found his lineup against the Lakers, but can he win? That's going to be the different story.
Let me ask you this, Kenny. We saw Lonnie Walker erupt last night, scored all 15 of his points. How difficult is it for a guy? He starts the season as the starting rotation. He gets nicked up, and he kind of finds his way and meddles around, and then he's completely out of the rotation, and he's playing basically mop-up minutes in the postseason. Now he's called in to contribute heavy minutes. How difficult is it for a guy, and how does a guy keep his mind sharp to know that when my moment is called, I got to answer the bell, even though the bell hasn't been ringing a whole lot?
See, that's what the problem with you, Shannon. You've been a superstar your whole life, brother. Like, you've never had that issue. You never had that issue, man. I've had it once in my career. And so what you do is, this is the part that when people say professional, like, and they don't understand it. When the level that Shaq, yourself, or Charles, like, this is the part that you have to be ready. And I asked them this last night because I think it was my seventh year, ninth year in the league, somewhere around there. That happened to me in Houston. And you're angry, and at the same time, you have to be part of the team. So you can't be angry at the guys playing in front of you because you have to stay part of the team. But you have to be angry that you're not in the game. And that anger will lead you to stay late, come early. And so when that window opens back up, you go, I'm going to show everybody that they were wrong. I'm going to show you that you're wrong. But, you know, when you're a superstar like yourself, brother, you know, you've been playing your whole career, and you never had to come off no benches and nothing like that at any time of your career.
Not late in my career, early. Go ahead, Skip.
Early. So, Kenny, your man Shaq last night made a very strong, compelling case that Golden State can and will come back in this series. Do you think the Warriors are done?
Well, you know, with 95% of the teams down, I think that's the numerics. I've been on the 5%, honestly. I've been on the team that was blessed to do it against Phoenix.
Yep.
And the one thing the Warriors have going for them, they're going home for Game 5. So the mentality is, we were sitting on the plane, guys, and I was talking to, I think it was Mario, Elliott, and Vernon Maxwell. I was like, we're not losing Game 5 at home. And Akeem joins in, it's like, no, we'll never lose at home. I said, so all we have to do is win Game 6, and we never will lose a Game 7 at home. So now your mentality is almost encouraging. You have to have a delusional thought process, one, to be an NBA player. You know, when only 5,200 people have ever donned the floor of a basketball floor in the NBA in 75 years, you got to be delusional. But you have to have a delusion of grandeur. And you have to believe there's no way we can lose Game 5. All we have to do is win Game 6 and then never win a Game 7 at our place. That's how you think. The blessing for Golden State is Game 5 isn't going back to Los Angeles.
So change directions quickly with this, Kenny, here. Back to what you do on a nightly basis on Inside the NBA. It's a great show. I don't always agree with your man Charles, but I do love watching the show. Watched it late into the night last night. Tell us what do you consider, or how do you define your role sitting between Charles and Shaq?
Well, let's start here. I don't think I agree with Charles all the time, but I don't know why you guys cannot. You guys are so much alike and so different at the same time that it's hilarious. That the funny part that you talk about each other that way, but it's hilarious to me from an observing point of view. But I think it's easy because I think the one thing that we do really well is that we do listen to each other, and like. So we don't have our notes. And like, you know, you write certain things down and I'm sure you guys are like, oh, we're going to talk about this. We just don't stick to it. Because if Charles says something or I say something or Shaq says something that we don't agree, we rip up the notes and we're like, no, we're going at that. I think that's the difference with, that I notice what we do differently than a lot of places is that we really listen to each other when you have 4 or 5 guys on the set. And you just really want to get your point across sometimes. And you're like, no, that's not as important as what this guy just said.
Go ahead.
But, Katie, well, I want to ask you this, because obviously when you play the game, the critique, the criticism that a former player gives to a current player, it cuts a little deeper. So how do you, I got to tell it like it is, but understand that I did play the game. This young man has a mom, has a dad, has a wife, has a significant other, maybe a father himself. How do you go about that? I got to do my job, but I can't just beat the guy over the head with it.
Oh, it's simple, and I think that's why I very rarely get calls. I think Charles very rarely, or even Shaq, because we talked about this, at least Charles and I, when we first got there. I was like, Chuck, we could never talk about anyone's passion, their character, or their drive, because those are things we cannot measure. But we can say your ass didn't get back on defense. And I can show the film, and I'm going to run to the board, and I'm like, yeah, see, this time you ran back, this time you didn't. And now you can't fool me. So now you're questioning your own passion. You're questioning your own. But I could question your effort, because I seen you get up and down the court in 7 seconds. Now I'm seeing you getting up down in 11. Like that, it's measurable things. When you stay on the measurable, players might not like it, but they never question you. But if I say, oh, he doesn't have enough passion, like, what do you mean? I have to have the passion to get to the league. I don't he doesn't have a heart. I can't measure that. But I do measure, listen, when you were supposed to rotate on that double team, you ain't there, bro. Like, you can't hide. You can't hide to me. I know the game plan. I can see y'all game plan because I've been in the locker room. I know what you're supposed to be doing, and you're not doing it. Then you don't have a problem.
Gotcha.
So, Kenny, you have a new book out. It's called Talk of Champions, the stories of people who made me, a memoir. Of those people who made you, who means the most to you?
Well, it all started with mom and dad.
Yep.
Obviously, you know, and we talked about listen. They taught me the ability, my mother and father taught me the ability to listen. And the ability to listen, it will give you empathy for people, but not always sympathy. But I have to understand where you're coming from, why you're saying these things, and where you are. And then I might have empathy for you. That, in turn, the other thing, guys, is like, I used to think that the people who were around my life, that was normal for everyone. Then I started looking, I'm like, wait, Bill Russell, like Dean Smith, like Michael Jordan, Shaq, Charles, that's not a normal life. And I used to take it for granted that everyone had those people in their life. And so I wanted to I want people to read the book and kind of go, oh, this is what champions do. Because instead of chapter 1, 2, 3, every chapter is named after a person. And I'm telling you what I learned from them. So it's a tell-all, but what I learned from them. And so now if I had this at 21, man, listen, if I had this information at 21, but it's a compiling of over 50 years of, you know, all this information that I just honestly took for granted at times, you know, business people. I had, you know, from the Kohler family, David Kohler, who runs the Kohler company. He was sleeping on my couch. Guy Osiri, who manages Sting and Madonna, was sleeping on my couch. Like, I took it for granted that these people were normal people, like that everyone had around them. And this is what I think, you know, I just wanted people to listen and read. And when they go, man, I feel better now because I understand why I was great in that moment, because Michael did it this way, Shaq did it this way, or whatever, or whoever.
Let me ask you this. When you were at North Carolina with Michael and you guys were scrimmaging, you practicing, and you watching him play, did you think then he would become what he became?
No, not totally. I didn't think he'd be the greatest basketball player to ever live. No, I thought that he had a competitive spirit, just like a lot of people. But the difference is he backed it up every day, and he was a perfect size for a basketball player that I thought. 6'6", you're able to go in with the trees, and you're quick enough to stay with the guards. And then his athleticism took him to another level. To me, he's the most fundamentally sound basketball player who was the most athletic. He's always had his correct hand in the passing lane. His footwork was impeccable. Most guys who were that athletic didn't do that. They just relied on the fact that they were athletic. And that changed his game, I thought, being the most fundamentally sound basketball player.
So, Kenny, obviously you came out of New York City, out of Queens, as a great high school player, and then you had the honor and privilege of being Michael's road roommate when you were a freshman and he was in his final year at Carolina as a junior. So could you please convince the man sitting across the table from me that Michael is clearly better than LeBron ever thought about being?
Well, it's close to me. However, we're old enough to be in both moments, Skip. I think, like, we've been in the moments of, like, Michael's when it's happening. Like, my son just sees the highlights. Yep. You know, he's 25. So they don't understand that when they beat Cleveland Cavaliers were about to be the team that possibly could win an NBA championship, and they dismantled them because they couldn't get by Michael. Like, this team was good enough if they don't go to play the Jordan-led Bulls to be in the NBA Finals. So we understand what it means in the moment. So I just think that Michael's moments, for me, because I've lived through LeBron's moment, just his moments might be a little bigger. And so when they beat Detroit, I understand what that meant for LeBron beating Detroit also. So I understand what the moments are. I'm not a highlight driven. I'm actually living in the moments. And just for me, that's a personal choice. I just think his moments of what he did things were just a little elevated higher in those places. But nobody's done it as long and it's good. Nobody's done it as long as LeBron and that. No, nobody done it as long as better. No one. He is the longevity, Shannon. Michael could not compete with the longevity. No. Kareem could not compete with the longevity. However, the moments, like beating this Golden State team, is it a big moment in his career?
But see, here's my argument, though. Because if he beat them, they'll say it's not a big moment. But if he loses, they're going to say it's going to elevate Steph. See, LeBron now is in a lose-lose. Everything he does, man, he's done that. But if he loses, man, he couldn't even beat this team. You know how it works, Kenny. You know how it works.
Well, welcome to Michael Jordan's world. That's what Skip and I'm telling you. Welcome to the world that Michael Jordan lived in. That's the world he lived in as well. They both live in it. And, I love them both, honestly. Because the one thing I love about LeBron is the only thing you ever talk about is basketball with him. You never talk about anything off the court. You never talk about all of these transgressions and things. The only thing I can remember, he took a Hummer when he was in high school. Yeah. Which is now an NIL deal. Which is now an NIL deal. So he was right. He was already ahead of us.
Kid, let me ask you this. How do you think some of the superstars, the Magics, the Birds, those guys, yourself, Olajuwon, how would it have been if you guys would have had social media? What would be the difference? Because we look at LeBron, and LeBron has never, ever had nothing else but social media. How do you think Jordan, I'm going to go Jordan because I'm going to the umpteenth degree. How do you think Jordan would have handled social media?
It would have been too much. Because think about how everybody in the world knew about him. He was like our version of musically Michael Jackson. Like, around the world, he was the most recognizable person in the world. And I don't know if social media, how that it would have been too much, because it was almost too much and there was no social media. And all you saw was Michael everywhere. But you think about it, newspapers was our social media. Everyone had a newspaper back then. So, I'm from New York, you go on a subway, every business person, every person had a newspaper in their hand. So we did have the device. It was just archaic. It was. And he was in it. Yeah. And he was in it. It wasn't instant.
Yeah, but that's the difference. Instantaneous now.
Instantaneous. To see Michael instantaneous around the world. Yeah. He would be I don't know if he was 10-time billionaire now, he'd be 100 billion easily, because he would be too popular. He just would be too popular because he was doing things we had never seen. As great as LeBron is, we've seen a little bit of it before. We just had never seen that the way Michael did it.
Yeah, they're not going to. I mean, he laid the blueprint for all athletes moving forward, how to build a brand. I don't know if we'll ever see a guy, and I tell Skip this, and I tell people all the time, I've never met anybody like Michael. It's like he's levitating, Kenny. I know you went to school with him, so you don't look at him like that. But I know you know a lot of people that have met Michael for the very first time, and they say the man is levitating, say he's not real.
He has a gravity about him. He definitely has a gravity about him. But like I said in the book, when you rooming with a guy and you tell him about your dreams when you're 18 and 19 years old, all of a sudden they don't have the same gravity, if you know what I mean? Yeah. Because you're sitting in those rooms late night talking, they don't have the same gravity, and and the room doesn't smell the best all the time. It doesn't have the same gravity. But I do think the next, and it could be this kid, I don't know if it is, a guy like Wembanyama, a guy who is an international star, who comes to America and becomes an American star, which is in reverse. So I think the first guy who does that and is that big, like Wembanyama has that gravity right now from Europe, and then he comes here and he does it. If he does the same thing, he would be a bigger star than both Michael and LeBron if he becomes that good.
Yep.
Because he would have a fan base that they never started with.
Kenny, no doubt it is going to be a fantastic read. Personally, I'm really looking forward to the chapters on Kobe and Bill Russell. We really appreciate you joining us. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you guys, man. And Shannon and Skip, I think Chuck still loves you undercover and vice versa. I think you guys I think y'all call each other on the low and don't let us know.
No.
But that's another story and another show.
I do not love Charles Barkley.
That's an expose for
And he
another
doesn't love
day,
you.
Kenny. Love it.
All right.
Appreciate it, Kenny. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks a
Take
lot.
care, Kenny. Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Subscribe here to get the very latest from Skip and Shannon. Plus, go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.